Let's talk about a concept you've probably heard of, one that shaped centuries of thought, but often just gets boiled down to a simple story about an apple. Yep, we're talking about original sin. But what if that popular image totally misses the point? Let's unpack what this powerful doctrine actually claims about you, me, and all of us.
When I say original sin, your mind probably jumps straight to the Garden of Eden, right? You see a piece of fruit, a serpent, Adam and Eve, and a really bad choice. And look, that story is the starting point, for sure. But the doctrine itself, it's about something so much bigger, a consequence that, according to theologians, affects every single person who has ever lived. You know, the story of Adam and Eve, it's really just the tip of the iceberg. The classical doctrine, especially the one shaped by St. Augustine, argues that the real meaning of original sin is hiding right below the surface, and it has some pretty profound things to say about all of humanity.
Okay, so first things first. Let's just clear the slate and tackle the biggest misconception right out of the gate, because understanding this one little distinction is the key to unlocking this entire idea. Here it is. This is the crucial split. The act of eating the fruit, theologians call that the first sin. But original sin, with a capital O and S, that's not about the action. It's about the consequence. It's this corrupted nature that we all supposedly inherit. Think of it like this. The doctrine claims we aren't sinners just because we sin. We sin because we are born with a sinful nature. It's a condition, not just a series of bad choices.
So this idea of a universal sinful condition is the absolute heart of the doctrine. And it's not just presented as some abstract theory. It's framed as an explanation for something we can all see every single day. I mean, just ask yourself, why does every single society in all of history have to deal with corruption? Why does every culture need laws against murder and theft? The theologian Jonathan Edwards made this great point that you don't even need the Bible to see this. Just by looking at the world, you'd have to conclude that something is universally off with our moral compass, right from the very beginning.
And the guy who really systematized this whole explanation was St. Augustine. He created this incredibly powerful before and after model to sort of map out the massive moral shift in human nature.
So before the fall, Augustine argued that humans were in a state he called posse peccare. It's Latin, and it just means they had the ability to sin. They had real free will, which of course included the freedom to choose disobedience. And well, as the story goes, they did.
But, and this is so important, that's only half the picture. They also had what he called posse non peccare, the ability not to sin. This meant they had the real, genuine power to choose perfect obedience, to always do the right thing. This moral freedom is the whole key to understanding what was lost.
So here's the catastrophic shift, according to Augustine. In the fall, humanity kept the ability to sin, but we lost the ability to not sin. That power, that freedom to choose perfect obedience was broken, and that fundamentally changed our moral nature and created this whole new human condition.
This loss created a brand new state of being, one that Augustine described with a very famous and admittedly kind of confusing Latin phrase.
All right, get ready for this. It's a tricky double negative, non posse non peccare. It literally means the inability to not sin. This is the core of what's known as moral inability. Now, it doesn't mean we lose free will completely. It means that, left to our own devices, our nature is now so bent towards self-interest that we're incapable of choosing perfect righteousness. Sin, at some point, is inevitable.
Okay, but the obvious objection, right, is, hold on a second, people do good things all the time, and that's a fair point. This doctrine has an answer for that, and it's actually best explained with an analogy. So imagine a guy who just loves driving at 55 miles per hour. That's his jam. And hey, the speed limit is 55, so on the highway he looks like a model citizen. But then he enters a 15-mile-per-hour school zone, and he just blows right through it at 55. What does that reveal? His motive was never to obey the law, it was just his personal preference. His obedience was, you could say, a fortuitous accident.
This idea has a name. It's called civic virtue. These are actions that look good on the outside. You know, we don't steal because we're afraid of going to jail, or we're kind to someone because we want them to like us. But from this theological point of view, for an action to be truly good, the motive matters just as much as the deed. And the standard for a pure motive? Nothing less than a perfect love for God.
And this is where the doctrine makes its most radical and, honestly, counterintuitive claim about the human condition when we're measured against that absolute perfect standard.
The biblical foundation for this is just absolute. The Apostle Paul writes, "There is none righteous, no, not one." I mean, can you imagine hearing that on the news? A declaration that not a single person on earth is truly good. It sounds absurd, right? Because we see people perform kind and selfless acts all the time. But the doctrine argues this isn't a human assessment, it's a divine one, and it's measured against a standard of absolute perfection we can't meet.
So you see, the Augustinian view isn't that humanity is just morally sick and needs a doctor. It's that we are spiritually dead and need resurrection. We aren't just detained and in a bit of trouble. We are in total bondage to our own nature, and we're completely unable to free ourselves.
At the end of the day, the doctrine of original sin leads us to a really stark conclusion. If our moral nature is so fundamentally broken, then it means that no amount of self-help or new laws or human effort can truly fix the core problem. From this perspective, the solution cannot come from within. And that idea that we are trapped in a state from which we cannot rescue ourselves, that is the challenging and perhaps the most influential legacy of this entire doctrine.